So ahead of CCTV's live show for the general election this coming Thursday, I sat down with a Liberal Democrat candidate for Romsey and Southampton North, Catherine Royce. Why did you get involved in politics in the first place?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. I guess to change things. That's why most politicians are in it.
So obviously speaking to other candidates from the area, and even looking back in the past, it did used to be a Lib Dem seat, and until Caroline Noakes took over in 2010. A lot of the other candidates have said she's almost undefeatable this time out.
Oh, we see our chances as very good. I mean, Liberal Democrats are the challengers, and despite what Labour and the Green Party may say, their vote is very small and has always been very small, probably around 5-10% maximum in the constituency. So it really is a two-horse race. And whilst we had a pretty disastrous general election in 2015, which everybody knows, we lost most of our MPs. The electorate decided to punish us for going into coalition government, for good or bad. We had an extremely good local election on May the 4th, Hampshire County Council elections, and across those 5 contests we won 3, the Tories won 2.
Why do you think so much has changed, obviously only being 2 years since that general election where you didn't do exactly so well?
Well, I think everything's changed, really, hasn't it? I mean, mostly Brexit, shall we say. That's probably the big game changer and the big additional factor in this election. We're getting a lot of former, what I would call One Nation Conservatives who voted Remain and who are very unhappy with the way Theresa May is taking the country down a hard Brexit, which is going to basically smash the economy, most importantly, and to share international security information, particularly with Europol and the Schengen Information Service, which is regulated by the European Court of Justice. So if we want to have access to international security arrangements, we must stay close to Europe and be as close as possible, and certainly not be a party to any hard Brexit.
What were your sort of initial thoughts when Theresa May called the snap general election, and were you really anticipating coming in and having to run so soon after the last election?
It's clear this was blatant electioneering, which we don't approve of, but okay. Politics is a dirty business, and I guess we can't blame her for taking the opportunistic route, but I think she's probably seriously miscalled it. Conservatives, of course, were more than 20 points ahead in the polls. Labour continuing to struggle and to find their feet and get their message together, and with the continuing issue around leadership and their ministerial team. So I think it was certainly an opportunistic moment for her to call the election. And also, I think she was very cognizant of the fact that the economic data are now beginning to turn. Inflation is going up.
If the Lib Dems were to become sort of a crucial party in this, potentially looking into maybe a coalition, what would your thoughts be on that? And of the two parties, which of the two would you sort of prefer to look down the route of coalition with?
I will say this very clearly, and everybody in the party has said this, Tim, there will be no coalition. Whatever the electoral maths on Friday morning, there will be no coalition. We will be taking it on an issue-by-issue basis. We suffered sufficiently 2 years ago.
One of those things, obviously, that you probably would agree with me when you're saying you suffered with was the issue of tuition fees. Whereabouts do you stand on the whole tuition fee issue?
Personally, I was very disappointed that we couldn't deliver that, but I think given the economic situation that we found ourselves in 2010 and being really forced into a coalition, there was no other game in town. On that Friday morning after the 2010 election, it was clear that we could not make a coalition with Labour, which probably would have been a much more comfortable one from the ideological point of view. In retrospect, it was probably the best thing for the country, but of course, if if we had known what was going to happen in 2015. I don't think even Nick Clegg would have done it this time. But going to the specific issue of tuition fees, I, of course, had the benefit of a free education. And, OK, I was at university a very long time ago. But as I did medicine, I was there for 5 years. So I certainly benefited from that. And I'm very sympathetic to all the students, particularly those on the long courses, 4, 5, 6-year courses that have tuition fees. I think it's still, you'll think this extraordinary that I should say, it is still a long-term aim of the Liberal Democrats, but clearly it's not something we can address at the moment because we would lack credibility on that. And I think people need to understand we were the minority party in a coalition. We had 50 MPs to the Conservatives 300. We only had 1/3 of the cabinet seats, perhaps most importantly because that's where the decision was taken. And frankly, the Tories couldn't care less about tuition fees. Most of their people can afford to go to university. They have many more people with private means. And so the issue of expanding university entrance to working class children was not working class young people, not children anymore by the time they get to young people, but to working class families was not a big issue for them. But I think what is really worrying to me, and which actually I only heard from one of the students here in Southampton a few weeks ago during the campaign, was the fact that the loan book, which of course was the government's loan book and was supposed to be a low-cost, no-interest loan book, has been sold off to private bank, and I understand now that students are being asked to pay huge interest rates, and I think that is wrong, and I'd certainly be very willing to campaign on that if I was elected to Parliament. I think we should have maintained the ethos of a very low interest, no interest loan for students so they got the best opportunity of paying that off.
Speaking of policies, what would you put at the top of your priority list? So a couple of policies that are really, really important to you if you were to get elected.
Apart from Brexit, as a medical doctor, obviously the NHS is my passion, and so our policy actually coming out and putting 1 penny on the basic rate income tax, I think, is a brave one and a necessary one. Moving more funds away from hospital, high intensity care, and into the community, so that people can be treated more closely to home, particularly the elderly, where in most cases it's actually inappropriate for them to be in hospital. We need to make sure that we have a deal with Europe whereby we can continue to take advantage of EU citizens who want to come and work in the NHS, doctors, nurses and care workers, tens of thousands currently working in the NHS. They make a huge contribution, probably somewhere between 10 and 20% of the workforce is from Europe. People feel generally unwelcome, and I think the government has really underestimated that, that people don't want to live in a country where they feel uncomfortable and feel as if they're second-class citizens, and I think that's been underestimated.
Are there any final things that you'd like to say to our viewers?
Is to work hard, make sure you get a good degree, and enjoy your university time. I think that's probably the most important thing about being at university, is to be away from your home environment and to spread your wings, and be sure the Liberal Democrats will do everything we can to help you in your career and make sure that the doors to Europe stay open for you, not only as a student but more importantly so that you can go and work wherever you want to work. So I wish you all the very best of luck. I know it's the exam season. Don't overdo it on the balls and the drinks afterwards, but have a good time.
Right. Thank you very much and best of luck.